All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
I am delighted that so many people came out. This is quite exciting. It's a...
What?
I know, it's pretty amazing. We've got a pretty crazy and a terrific show for you, reviewing any number of events, many of which have happened just in the last couple of hours. We are happy to have Kim back in our midst.
Kim, how are you?
And Albert is here today.
Albert, thank you.
I am hopeful, Albert, and I bet the answer is no. You know, I like wagering. I like to wager ahead of time. The answer is no, and when I said no, it's the time. That doesn't count if you've done it in the seconds between me saying no and now. You have not posted that we're on the air on social media. Am I right or wrong?
You are wrong. 2 minutes ago, it's already posted.
What?
Yes!
I am very impressed. Wow.
I love it, Albert.
Albert,
thank you.
You are really surprising. He's so together now. I don't understand it.
This is so ridiculous.
News out of the many things going on Capitol Hill right now. There's actually some breaking news there. News out of the FBI today. And the Texas primary, which is March 3rd. And you may not necessarily focus on the Texas primary in normal years. It indicates, and I'll get to this story in a bigger way, that Democrats are going to show up in much bigger numbers than Republicans. And in as much as that's the case, there's a threat that Texas could actually flip. And we'll talk more about that in the minutes ahead. De Niro in the news in a back and forth with Donald Trump. And the confirmation hearings around the Surgeon General, Casey Means, quite odd. And this is someone, this will come as no surprise to you, whose credentials will be kind about it and put them in the questionable category. But in this new administration of incompetence, where it's all just what I saw on TV, and I've got a big social media following, she fits right in. There is big news, and then there is weird news, and it's all contained. Oh, I want to say, hey, quick shout out to Lucy McAllister. Check that out. My favorite McAllister.
Big shout out. Into
the Super Sticker game early. Thank you, those of you who support this show through Patreon, through PayPal, through the Super Stickers, through the Super Chats. Really does make a difference. Very much appreciate it. And Lucy McAllister, regularly there, will lead us off.
I'm not gonna lie, Lucy rocks.
She's pretty damn cool. That is for sure. In fact, I got an email containing a letter, which was literally a letter sent into us.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
It was about support. They were sending along some support to us. Some people don't like Patreon and PayPal. They like to just send us a check, and you can do that. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. We're really a small business, so we exist independent of any other support. So that's why it's so great when people step up through Patreon, PayPal, through Super Sticker, Super Chats, and also through just sending us something, which people are oftentimes more comfortable with than those methods I just mentioned. And so anyway, they if you send to me an email, I can send you the address. You can drop that in the mail, old school style, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. So anyway, I got this morning, and the reason I'm really looking for it is it mentions everybody, which is quite lovely. And I always love it when everybody on the show gets a little love.
No, you don't.
Well, I like it when I get the most love.
You know I am.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of a big deal.
I don't want people to be focusing on everyone else on the show, but I don't mind them mentioning other people on the show.
Yeah.
Dear Mark, Kim, and Albert, and Tony, My continued thanks and support for your great show. Wow. I was a KGO listener way back in the mid-'70s, so it's wonderful to still have some connection to the voices of that radio station. I particularly appreciate Mark's insights. How about that? I'll take a minute. Thank you. And his repartee with Kim.
Oh, nice.
man.
Repartee should be
Oh,
dinged.
my
Repartee
God.
is dingable.
I don't know
Kim,
if
how are
that
you?
was necessary.
You know, that was very necessary. Thank you.
The weekly conversations with John Rothman and David Katz are always enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
And I also appreciate the Culture Blaster segment. Wow, Culture Blaster gets a mention. I'm a fan of movies and TV. I do miss Courtney's true crime segment. Oh, yeah, she used to.
What?
I know. We just really
like it
haven't.
too.
It's just been crowded out, but a lot of people miss it. I can only imagine that she has some intelligent insights on the distressing Guthrie case.
Oh, yeah.
Again, thanks so much for your great work. It's from Julie Klein. Julie, thank you. What a beautiful note and what a generous donation to keep us on the air. It really makes a difference, and quite exciting to hear from the audience and to get support from the audience that way.
We have some Elevator 2 with a 5. He says Remarkables should post a picture of themselves on the Mark Thompson Show Facebook page so we can see what each other looks like. I went
That
first.
is a great. Richard Delamater has come up with some good ideas lately too. You know, we thought he was just a party boy, but we have a new Facebook page, and you should jump on it. I know. It's we're the very last people to Facebook. I mean, we wanted to be really sure that the platform was solid before we came on board. So we're the very last people to get on Facebook. And our Facebook page is available to you. The link is in the show description. And you can go to Facebook. What is it? Facebook.com/The Mark Thompson Show. I think there's like an imposter Mark Thompson show. So make sure you.
It was a page that I tried to set up a long time ago, and I'm in the process of deleting it. But when you delete a Facebook page, like a business page, they make you wait a certain number of days before it goes away.
See.
So
Okay.
the one with the palm trees, that's the wrong one. The one that has the videos up that Albert is showing,
There
that's
it
the
is.
right one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we're going to have, regular postings there. There'll be all kinds of things on that Facebook page that you may want to know about. So please do, what do you join a Facebook page, Kim? I'm not a big Facebook.
Yeah.
person.
You join it, follow
you
it.
join it. Right.
Yeah.
You join it. Join it. I mean, join big. It's free, of course, right?
Yeah.
So somebody else mentioned in another email to me.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
I've been thinking about the sound problems that you're having on the YouTube channel. How far are you from a military base? You know, they have radio jamming equipment, or perhaps it's whoever you are talking to that is near a military base. I didn't know we were having audio problems, but are we?
No,
don't
maybe
think so.
he's talking about in recent days.
Yeah.
I think that's
Anyway.
more of an internet situation.
Okay. Anyway, that's from Carolyn. And thank you, Carolyn, for checking in on us and offering some thoughts. And Carolyn had a question about the Dr. Means Surgeon General confirmation, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show as well. So there's a lot going on. Thank you for being here. I did want to take you into the magical world.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The magical world of Facebook and some of the stuff going on. By the way, is Albert still considered fresh face? Asked Camille.
He's pretty fresh looking. I'd say, yeah.
So many of you don't know this, but I'll just tell you this quickly, super quickly, under a minute. This entire thing will take. When we were on the radio, Albert was my producer on the radio. This is how we end up with these people here. Kim was the news person, Albert the producer. And Albert sounded young to me. And remember, radio, it's all about how you sound, right? It doesn't matter what the person looks like or how old they actually are, et cetera. So I called him, and he's also, to be fair, he was young. I mean, he was young, he was 20-something. So I called him fresh-faced producer Albert. And it became like a nickname that everybody started using. They called him fresh-faced producer Albert or fresh-faced, and he got like freshfaced.com, and it became, his email address was freshfaced at, KGO Radio, et cetera. So now he's grown up because it's been a while. But he still does have the aspect of him that is youthful and fresh-faced. So the answer to your question is, yes, I think you could still call him fresh-faced, even though we don't call him fresh-faced any longer. So
You know how there's this new thing on the Mark Thompson show in the chat where people are betting on what time the show will begin? It appears Ron Cook feels he won it, and he asks, how does this work? Who has my cash? Does Kim send me a check, or do I pick it up from the office? I feel in the rich tradition of the Mark Thompson show.
yeah, you get nothing.
You get
Thank you.
nothing.
Well,
Yes.
I don't mean to explain this to people who don't really wager much, as I can tell this crew doesn't. But when you wager, you have to have another side that you're wagering with, somebody who's wagering against you, if you want to think of it that way, right? I think the show will start on time or it won't start on time. You need somebody to take the it will start on time. If everybody takes the it won't start on time, then you don't have a wager, right? So you guys, and I know this is tough, but you have to set up the marketplace for those wagers, all right? So you have to put in a pool. This is what I would suggest. Everybody puts in $5 or something, and you all wager, and you wager on the time the show starts. And then whoever is right gets all of the $5 from all of those people who are part of it. Maybe it's 6 people, you'd get $35, right? Or is it $30?
I think it's 30.
$30, right?
Whatever.
So
yeah.
my point is, you should set that up. Okay, then you could give the $30 to the show. You know? All right. I want a chunk of Trump, and I'm running so late. What's going on? I have to give you a quick word out of Chicago. They've had all this snow in Chicago. And in Chicago, they wanted to name a snowplow. Obviously these snowplows are out on the streets in such a big way. So the Streets and Sanitation Department in Chicago, they started this snowplow naming contest. It's an annual contest. And I wonder if you can, Kim, give us the details on that and if there is a winner.
The winner of the Chicago Snowplow Naming Contest is...
But first,
you know what I'm saying?
there were 6 choices. Okay, I just want to,
Okay, here's the choices.
Yeah.
Caleb Chilliams, Sven Cooley, The Blizzard of Oz, Pope Frio, Stephen Coldbear, and Abolish ICE.
Yeah, there they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise. The mayor saying that great thanks should be sent to everyone for their unmatched creativity, sense of humor, and civic pride. And they recommended and decided on which one?
Abolish ICE.
Abolish ICE. That's the one that was the winner.
Which
All
is
right.
perfect. A perfect name for a Chicago snowplow.
Yeah, indeed. Meantime, let me give you a quick chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
I don't let the cute intro fool you. The world of Donald Trump is dead serious in many ways. Many of those ways will be detailed for you in the moments ahead. But one of the things that's being talked about increasingly is his health. And a surprising number of Republicans now think that Trump is becoming more erratic with age. This is a poll conducted just before Trump's State of the Union address. And it was a Reuters Ipsos poll. It finds that 61% of Americans would describe Trump as having become erratic with age. 89% of Democrats, 30% of Republicans, and 64% of independents describing the president as erratic. 45% of the respondents said that they would describe Trump as mentally sharp and able to deal with challenges. That's down almost 10% from a couple of years ago. Meantime, the one thing that is full speed ahead is the Qatari jet that was given to Donald Trump without any resistance from any lawmaker on the GOP side. Marble showers and plush suites. The Boeing 747-8 gifted by Qatar and being converted in this insanely expensive way to become another Air Force One that Trump can take with him. It's a remarkable party favor that's being offered to this president.
Isn't weight a thing? Why would you put marble on a plane?
Of course, it is. You put it on a plane because the chief executive wants marble, and it'll just be more fuel to fly marble around. The things that are associated with building a plane are generally lighter weight because it just will take less fuel then to move from here to there. But the aircraft is being fast-tracked for delivery by summer. And that compressed timeline is making everything more expensive, of course. And according to Air and Space Forces magazine, don't you get that, Albert? Air and Space Forces magazine? The aircraft is unlikely to get an in-flight refueling system as part of its rapid modification. The schedule, scope, cost, and risk are constrained a bit by the time frame. They're trying to get everything done as quickly as possible.
Can I just say that I'm reading this, the Qatari VVIP, not even VIP, VVIP is expected to remain in place. It will be, they say, the most luxurious Air Force One in history, designed as a flying palace, complete with private bedroom suites, marble-clad bathrooms, as you mentioned, with full showers, expansive lounges, wood paneling, tailored carpets, and even a grand staircase lining
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the grand staircase. If you haven't, we're showing pictures of the thing. You really can luxuriate in the luxury.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. It's nicer even than
There's
probably that
Look at
Jeffrey Epstein plane that those kids used to fly around on all the time. Wow.
God.
Anyway, the story is that it's click-clacking along. You bought it. You, the American people. What are you talking about, Mark? It was a donation from Qatar. What am I supposed to do? Tell him no? Yeah. It's $1 billion to get it ready for Trump and for him to fly around in this palace. And that $1 billion, you paid for it. And that is your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is a breaking news out of Washington in relation to the Epstein file story. Hillary Clinton was she was being interviewed today, Bill Clinton tomorrow, under oath and behind closed doors. I guess this is going on in
Right now.
Chappaqua. Is it in Chappaqua, New York? So it's not, I mean, these are Washingtonians in the legislators who've gotten on planes and trains, and they're going to this, again, closed door testimony. It's the latest and probably the highest profile set of depositions to take place in their ongoing investigation. And it's funny, they were quick to bring in the Clintons, not so quick to bring in a guy whose name is mentioned 1 million times, the President of the United States. But Kim, give us the update on this, because they actually had to adjourn this hearing. They had to stop because Lauren Boebert violated the basic committee instructions.
Yes, she decided that she was going to take a photo of Hillary Clinton at this community center in New York, and she posted it on X. It shows Hillary Clinton sitting at a long table, looking away from the camera, And Boebert posts this thing, which is totally against the rules. The whole procedure grinds to a halt. For a time, it looked like it was going to stop, like they weren't going to, continue. Advisor to Hillary Clinton comes out of the community center, talks to reporters, and says the hearing just went off the record for a moment because it seems, as some of you may have seen, there were some photographs shared on social media, which is against chamber rules, read at the top of the meeting. So the hearing has been paused briefly while they figure out where the photo came from and why the members are violating that rule. That was Lauren Boebert that violated the rule. Now the testimony is resuming, but yeah, she almost derailed the whole thing for taking that picture and posting it. I guess she wasn't paying attention to the rules at the top of the event.
Time in America is just such a different time than times past. And it was never really great, but there is a sense now that anything goes. Anyone can say anything to anyone. Anyone can violate any general rules of order and also rules of decorum.
Right.
And the other thing I would say about the Clintons, just as an aside, is they wanted an open hearing, right? Mm-hmm. Hillary and Bill said, great, let's do it. Let's do a public hearing. But no. The GOP wanted it behind closed doors because then they could control the information coming out. Media was on the scene, and but I think that they basically, Albert, didn't they say essentially what Kim has just told us, which is that Boebert violated the rules, and there was that release of that photo against the rules, and it almost derailed that hearing. I think that was
I think it's just the shocking. I don't know if it's shocking anymore. To me, it's shocking that people feel the rules don't apply to them. That they can do this and have as we're giving her right now, this, public moment that she gets the attention for breaking the rules and nothing will happen to her. We feel that way because that's exactly what is the case. I mean, there really aren't many repercussions. I mean, she won't be censured. She won't be. I mean, it's like, so why not? What's going to happen to me? Exactly. Yeah.
Democrats are investigating now whether the DOJ withheld those Epstein files on the Trump abuse claim. This is huge. We talked about this the last couple of days. It seems clear that the DOJ withheld interviews with a survivor who accused Trump of some nasty stuff. I mean, the R word, right? And physical abuse.
Yes.
So
slapping, hitting. Yeah.
The documents within the official records of the Epstein files appear to show that the FBI, as you're likely aware, met multiple times with this victim. Only those meetings, which were documented, they've gone missing. They are not in the Epstein file drop. They are coded. We know they happened, but the details of the meeting are completely omitted.
Wonder why that is, Mark. Why? Where'd they go?
So Democrats, and again, this seems to be on some level a partisan thing, even though the Epstein file release and demand for it wasn't a partisan thing. Democrats want answers from the DOJ. The Oversight Committee announcing that the DOJ withhold what appears to be more than 50 pages of FBI interviews and notes from conversations with a woman who accused Trump of sexual abuse when she was a minor.
13.
The report also says that the Justice Department, quote, removed some documents from the public database where accusations against Jeffrey Epstein also mentioned Trump. The clear violation of the legislation, the law that's associated with this, should be raising alarms. I don't know that it is. But Democrats, in any case, are going to investigate what happened with the DOJ. So this story isn't going away. Make no mistake about that.
It's just such a waste of time to depose Hillary Clinton. I mean, listen, if the Clintons are involved, then bring it. But there's one person sitting in the Oval Office right now. There's one person representing America right now. So to take the focus off of him, everybody should be wise to that, to what's happening.
Jeffrey Epstein appears to have successfully hidden a trove of potential evidence of his crimes from investigators for more than a decade, according to other documents released by the Department of Justice. Correspondence between Epstein's attorney, private investigators, previously sealed court filings suggest that he went to huge lengths to hide the potential evidence during the 3-year period when local and federal law enforcement began investigating him. Then he got that lenient plea deal. Remember, that was in Florida. And less than 2 weeks before the Palm Beach Police Department raided his mansion, that was in 2005, a private investigator retained by Roy Black, who's a defense lawyer, very famous criminal defense lawyer, that was his defense lawyer, removed a trove of evidence from his house, including multiple computers, more than 24 phone directories, I should say, and sexually explicit material. This is all in documents released by the DOJ. State and federal prosecutors appeared to have never accessed the materials when they were investigating Epstein, so they didn't even look at that stuff. And that, on some level, shielded Epstein from criminal exposure. And it explains a bit how he was able to escape justice for, more than a decade. So this is, again, all there in these DOJ files that we're now seeing. But the idea somehow that you could hide that information, it was more than an idea. They really did it. And now so much is coming out, and among the things coming out, Larry Summers, the disgraced professor at Harvard, he's going to resign from his teaching appointments at the end of the year. He was Secretary of the Treasury under Clinton. This isn't some guy who's just a college professor. This guy was a sage, I guess you'd consider him, an opinion that was sought about the economy to the point that he became the Secretary of the Treasury. If you look at his signature on your dollar bills and, bills that are of that vintage of the Clinton administration, you'll see it. Larry Summers, Secretary of the Treasury. Well, he was implicated in a huge way in the Epstein files, in exchanges, asked for romantic advice from Epstein, asked for him to help him in the way in which he was trying to interact with a mentee. He was a mentor. A mentee. Wasn't that what it was about? I think she was Russian. But there was not any question that Summers seems to be hip deep in a relationship here. I can read you. He faced intense scrutiny since revelations in November showed him in contact with Epstein over the course of the years. Millions of documents, including emails, have been released, etc., revealing the deep ties that Epstein had with people in high positions of power, including Summers. Quote, "I'm trying to figure out why American elite think if you murder your baby by beating and abandonment, it must be irrelevant to your admission to Harvard, but hit on a few women 10 years ago and can't work at a network or think tank." He wrote that. Larry Summers wrote that. And then in capital letters, "Do not repeat this insight." This is in 2017. Not only did Summers maintain contact with Epstein for years after the billionaire financier pleaded guilty to soliciting sex from underage girls in Florida in 2008, the former Harvard president's last message was just one day before Epstein was arrested. That was on federal sex trafficking charges. The resignation marks an important victory in the fight for justice for Epstein survivors, said Rosie Couture, who's the Harvard student and organizer of the activist group Feminist Generation. She called for Summers' resignation last year. So this is a guy who, I'll just put it bluntly, flew at the highest heights of government, of academia, at a prestigious university. He was the elite of the elites, and he is resigning in shame. Mendelsohn is arrested. They arrested him to prevent him from fleeing. That's across the way there in London. Mendelsohn is the ambassador who has very much been talked about in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. And Bill Gates apologizes to his staff for his Epstein ties. And not only was it an apology, he admits to 2 affairs. The Microsoft co-founder reportedly admitting to first meeting him in 2011, Jeffrey Epstein, 3 years after Epstein's conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. He continued to socialize with Epstein despite being aware of an 18-month thing, as it was put, that's a quote from him, that curbed Epstein's travel and the misgivings of his ex-wife, Melinda. He calls the decision to spend time with Epstein a huge mistake. Quote, I did nothing illicit. I saw nothing illicit.
Yeah, right.
Gates is also said to have told staff that he had affairs with 2 Russian women while married to Melinda. Quote, I did have affairs, one with a Russian bridge player who met me at bridge events, and one with a Russian nuclear physicist who I met through business activities.
I'm bad. I'm sorry.
Now I'm going to say something that's not going to be very popular, but I think the affairs that somebody has, as long as they are consenting adults, that's between the 2 of them. It doesn't bother me. But his association with someone who's a known sex offender, who demonstrably was immersed in a kind of underage sexual trafficking, and he can say he saw nothing, but wow, it's hard to imagine that you could spend extended periods of time with this guy and not be aware of it. Again, I don't know, but I just do want to. This thing is so awful, and what's alleged and what we see in the files, and we haven't even seen all of them, is so awful that you can get caught up in the awfulness, and everybody just gets thrown into the same pit of awfulness. And I'm just trying to, in a weird way, maybe distinguish between the degrees of awfulness, you know. And again, playing around on your wife or husband, I don't care. That's between you and your wife and husband.
Well, that's what he says. But Becky writes, how do we know they weren't trafficked women? I mean, he was hip deep with Epstein. We don't know if it was consensual. We don't know how old they were. We don't know if they were Russian assets. We don't know any of that.
Right. No, and I think that's a fair point. I mean, I don't, you know, it's sort of if you take him at his word type thing. But I completely agree. I mean, I'm not suggesting that he is. Now, the 330 gallons of sulfuric acid that was purchased for Epstein Island on the day the FBI opened the investigation into the pedophile trafficking charges, I mean, that seems like more than
this is weird.
A little fact. I mean, I don't know what's going on here.
Are they putting bodies in the barrels? Are they putting computers in the barrels? Like, what's going on that island?
Exactly.
Wow.
According to a receipt and several email exchanges buried within the millions of files that were released, Epstein had 6 55-gallon drums of the chemical sulfuric acid delivered to Little St. James, LSJ, as it shows up in the files. That's his private island. It was purchased for what looks like, what is that about? In pounds, it was it was like $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
The request on the form asks for the drums of sulfuric acid with fuel and insurance charge for transport materials. And you can see the wire transfer form in the files whereby money was transferred to pay for this acquisition. Further emails in the documents dating back to 2013 suggest that Epstein used sulfuric acid on the private island to purify water.
Uh-huh. How interesting. How interesting that he ordered it the same day the investigation opened.
Yeah. It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
RO stands for reverse osmosis, a water purification system, while sulfuric acid is widely used in water treatment, specifically to soften, adjust pH, and enhance the efficiency of other chemicals during the purification process. Other than water treatment and reverse osmosis system maintenance, no other explanation for the sulfuric acid is provided in those records. He died in 2019 while he awaited his trial for sex trafficking. It's more than a little weird, and it, as Kim sort of has intimated, could be associated with any number of things that could be destroyed there. And as I mentioned, the Epstein files are missing the records of the woman who made the most damning assertions that involved Donald Trump. So it was a series of things that were associated with a cover-up. It then became a governmental cover-up, and I think more and more is now being revealed, and it's taking down many people. But oddly, the shame associated with association with Epstein that you see in the legal community, in the academic community, and even in the political community, primarily in Great Britain, hasn't really reached the shores of the U.S. in a big way, because the highest heights here are all over the Epstein file like a bad smell, and still nothing.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to get to the breaking story of the moment, which I think is associated with the purge. The purge at the FBI. It is scary what's happening in the U.S. government. But before I get to the scary stuff, Albert, do you mind if you'd indulge me?
The Mark Thompson Show.
First, I want to have a quick sip. Yes. I want to have a quick sip. Everyone, please raise your mugs together and have a sip of Coachella Valley coffee and tea.
The best.
Our partners now for a few years, they've been on the show. And I was drinking their coffee. It's the best coffee I've ever tasted. I was drinking it before they were ever on the show. And that they are on the show is insane. And I don't need to tell you, I've had coffee with kings and princes across the globe, my friends. In the Atlas Mountains of Morocco, I drank coffee out of a simple coffee urn. On the Champs-Élysées, I drank coffee out of an expensive boutique espresso cup. But I've never had coffee as positively transcendent as Coachella Valley coffee. Check them out for yourself, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And when you check out whatever you put into your online basket of magic, coffee, tea, spices, grab 10% off on the way out. Use our discount code MARKT. Kim rocks the Moroccan. She also likes the vanilla tea. She takes it on the road with her.
I do.
It's incredible.
What?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. She takes up valuable luggage space to pack it with her.
Must have it.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark T at checkout for 10% off.
Put that coffee down.
It's pretty special, and I want you to have that specialness. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The former federal prosecutor David Katz joins us in minutes, and what's happening at the federal government is straight up scary and alarming. Kash Patel firing at least 6 FBI agents. Here is the story as it broke last night. No? Let me toss to it again, Albert, and make this seamless for those listening. I think it'll be even more impressive. Albert, with like 500 windows open, wasn't quite ready to rock.
You had to get that Coachella Valley coffee stuff off my screen.
I know. It's tough to pivot from one thing to the next. Kash Patel, who he himself, Kash Patel is the train wreck of train wrecks, incompetent, flying everywhere on the taxpayer dime, and acting as a straight-up Trump functionary at the FBI, excuse me, Kash Patel in the news, continuing the Trump purge at the FBI. Here's how the story broke.
That hard to confirm that multiple agents and some support staff, at least 7 agents, were fired in relationship to their role in the Mar-a-Lago, what's known as the Mar-a-Lago documents case. You'll remember the FBI opened an investigation after determining there was probable cause to believe that Donald Trump had top secret classified records at his club when he was no longer president after he had left office in January of 2021. These individuals were fired, we are told by sources, were fired because they played some role in seeking investigative materials and specifically phone records, metadata about the phone calls of Kash Patel, who is now the FBI director, and Susie Wiles, who is now the chief of staff for the White House. The choice of these firings now is interesting because the FBI director fired, or his predecessor fired, many FBI agents immediately after Donald Trump's inauguration. So the question arises, why now are these individuals considered suspect or unprofessional or violating their oath of office?
Well, they don't violate their oath of office. Of course, they are not unprofessional. It's precisely because of their professionalism that they are being let go. The firings are part of a broader personnel purge under Kash Patel. This is a Trump appointee who, over the last year, has pushed out dozens of people at the FBI who either contributed to investigations or were perceived as not in alignment with the agenda of this administration. They put in lie detector tests for these people associated with January 6th, associated whether or not they believed that the 2020 election was legitimate. I mean, the litmus test for these people at the Justice Department and the FBI is ridiculous. And these sweeping firings that are going on are part of a process that continues. It's never over. They look at social media. They look at private conversations. This government is being purged of anyone who is even perceived to be a dissenter, or in this case, is part of some legacy investigation that they may have been assigned to. The thing with the FBI is they're given assignments. The same thing's true with the DOJ. It's not like they go up and go, Mr. Attorney General, I really would like to be on this January 6th prosecution. I'd really like to be on the Mar-a-Lago raid. Oftentimes, the stuff is assigned. A lot of those associated with the FBI, former FBI agents, the FBI Agents Association, condemn the firing as unlawful and having a clear tie to a political agenda that endangers national security. Here was the statement from the FBI Agents Association. These agents weaken the Bureau by stripping away critical expertise and destabilizing the workforce, undermining trust in leadership and jeopardizing the Bureau's ability to meet its recruitment goals, ultimately putting the nation at greater risk. Again, these are employees who helped investigate Trump's illegal, unlawful, despicable retention of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago resort. And he stuffed them in bathrooms, in bedrooms, in ballrooms. You're tripping over classified documents on the way to take a crap. It is such a degradation of the sanctity of national security that it is a smear on any oath that any public official has ever taken. Leave aside the President of the United States. So now you have his concierge judge in Florida who has parked the case completely, deleted it. So the case that was the easiest to understand, the least defensible, they scrambled to try to find a defense. Well, he declassified the materials, etc. That case goes away. And once again, having curated a Justice Department and FBI that is going to run interference for him, Donald Trump will skate on all of this. But again, this is the trail of breadcrumbs, so we all know. The call came from Chief of Staff Susie Wiles at the White House, and she became aware of this and wanted this done, is my sense of it. We'll follow this, but the stink around the FBI and Kash Patel is big. I don't know that it'll reach 30,000 feet where he's flying around on the private jet you're paying for, but it is definitely big news. And that is the latest purge at the FBI, and there may be a bite back. I'll ask David Katz about that, because it's possible that these agents, and maybe they'll be represented by their union as it happens, they will bite back at the Justice Department and a lawsuit may ensue. But for now, that's where we are.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Robert De Niro is biting back. The story is that Robert De Niro, who, I remember when Robert De Niro was just acting and really not saying much, but now he's become this guy who's out there, and to say he's not a Trump fan is to understate it in the extreme. Robert De Niro denouncing the U.S. president. It was a State of the Union alternative event. There were a bunch of those. And when Trump heard about this, that De Niro had fired on him, he fired back. He called De Niro an idiot. And De Niro called the president an idiot. Here is De Niro and what he said, and then I'll tell you what Trump said.
This is about our country imploding. It's not like something outside, it's something inside, and we can't allow it. If we allow Trump to go any further, he'll just take more and more and more and more. People have to push back peacefully in the streets all the time, everywhere, from now through the midterms. I don't even use the word hope anymore, but the midterms are crucial, as everybody knows. The goal is to get rid of Trump, because everything goes if he's not gotten rid of.
Yep, he's not wrong.
So Donald Trump received this with the normal grace and class that he displays. He wrote a long Truth Social post. By the way, I don't believe he writes at length ever, so it must have been written by someone else, or he advised how he wanted it generally to sound, the general tone, and then it was written by someone else. And first he proposed deporting Representatives Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who left the Capitol building early, as you know, after shouting him down during his speech. And it's for that reason I think the person who wrote the post was Stephen Miller. But anyway, he called them low IQ. He's talking about Tlaib, etc. They screamed uncontrollably last night at the very elegant State of the Union, such an important and beautiful event. They had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people, lunatics, mentally deranged and sick, who frankly look like they should be institutionalized, Trump said. And then he said they should actually get on a boat with Trump-deranged Robert De Niro, another sick and demented person with, I believe, an extremely low IQ, who has absolutely no idea what he is doing or saying, some of which is seriously, in capital letters, criminal.
It's what? Criminal to have an opinion?
Well, it is soon in America. It's not the America we grew up in. Trump continued, when I watched him break down in tears last night, much like a child would do, I realized that he may be even sicker than crazy Rosie O'Donnell, who is right now in Ireland trying to figure out how to come back into our beautiful United States. It's two things. One, extraordinary the way in which people feel in high-profile positions like De Niro's compelled to call out the chief executive on what he's doing, and a call to the American people, which is really what De Niro was saying, to vote. And in that spirit, you have to applaud anyone who is saying you should participate in the process of elections. What's extraordinary is the way in which there is no bottom to the response from the White House. There is no bottom. They have made, in almost a popularized fashion, the smearing of others a sport. They have created a discourse that is so gross that you end up with the kind of back and forth from the White House. I mean, there is really no swampiness stinky enough for these people. And it's just a sad way in which the country, in my view, has moved into a place where we don't treat each other with a kind of grace. I mean, it definitely leaches into everyday culture, you know? I don't mean to make too much of it. In one sense, it's just a De Niro thing back and forth. But in another sense, I'm trying to say a lot of stuff happens because they realize, oh, this is how we communicate with each other now. The they meaning people, kids, everybody. So I have word, speaking of getting out and talking about the midterms, I have word out of Texas. Let me get you to that. This is kind of
The Mark Thompson Show.
What's happening in Texas, Albert? Can you take me to the Texas primary and the fact that, didn't I have something on the Texas primary here? The polling and the Texas turnout is overwhelmingly Democratic. Did you get that video, pal? Or am I, yeah, you're going to have it? Okay.
I was working on it.
Okay. This is kind of big news. Texas is a real weird state from the standpoint of the candidates running. There are troubled candidates running, right? You have the full-on Trumpy, and you have the guy who was impeached as Attorney General. There was a whole impeachment, Paxton, who I'm talking about. Meantime, what's happening in Texas is associated with turnout. And here is a little of where that sits. It looks like Democrats are turning out in bigger numbers.
Something is going on in Texas. Primaries are March 3rd. That's next week. There is a really interesting phenomenon happening, though, among who is voting. Let's get to CNN chief data analyst Harry Etten. We're not even exactly talking about the candidates here, which is why it might be even more important.
No, mind blown, to quote the show Blossom Joey. Whoa. I mean, look at this. Okay, share of Texas midterm primary ballots at this point in the cycle cast in Democratic primaries or Republican primaries. In 2022, the last midterm, overwhelmingly, the votes were being cast in Republican primaries, 62%. But look at what's going on now in the 2026 cycle. More votes are being cast on the Democratic side. What a shift from where we were 4 years ago at this point. More people in Texas picking up the Democratic ballot.
More Democrats are voting in Texas than Republicans. I mean, how unusual is that?
Just how unusual. Well, you see the massive shift from 2022. But look at history. Go all the way back. When was the last time that more people actually picked up a Democratic ballot, cast a ballot in a Democratic primary in Texas in a midterm? You have to go all the way back to 2002. So this could break an over 20-year stretch, my goodness gracious, whereby more people are actually voting on the Democratic side. And I will note, it really hasn't even been close since 2002. Overwhelmingly more people have been voting on the Republican side in Texas. And this year so far, more people are voting on the Democratic side.
This is what we talk a lot about, and that is the idea that there is an animation of the vote and enthusiasm, voter enthusiasm, getting people off the couch, right? It's the apathy that defines really American elections that may have now affected the Republican vote in Texas more than the Democratic vote. So if you end up with Paxton, right, it seems as though neither one of these guys is going to actually hit 50%, which you have to. But Phineas says Texas grew a brain because Californians moved to Austin. I don't know about that, but I think what's happened is you've just seen a much bigger Democratic turnout based on all of that. So I'm not sure what will happen to Texas. It's still a big lift. I mean, we can when we get Gary Dietrich in on Monday, when we get John Rothman in on Wednesday, when we get the Mo Kelly, Michael Shore conversation tomorrow, we can ask them about Texas. But Texas is a bellwether. And to the extent that Texas is a bellwether, there is concern among those who are on the Republican side. And specifically, I'm talking about the President of the United States and his henchmen about how this next vote will go down. In short, they're worried. And that brings me to a huge, huge story that's just breaking today.
The Mark Thompson Show.
When it comes to the upcoming elections, the Democrats are sitting in a much more positive place, not money-wise. They are out fundraised by a ton. If you look at any of the fundraising numbers, you'll see they're overwhelmingly associated with the GOP column. But it appears that public sentiment is very much swinging toward Democrats and against Republicans. So the story that's breaking today is alarming. It is associated with the election and an order that Trump is weighing to seize the elections by declaring a national emergency because of, and this is the plan that has been leaked, I'll give you more on this as we talk here, because of foreign interference in the 2020 election. So he's saying, I won in 2020. I've been telling you I won in 2020, but foreign interference, which I now see because now I'm president, it made it look like Biden won. That foreign interference, I'm concerned about affecting this election. And for that reason, I am declaring a national emergency. And again, this is his go-to flex, a national emergency. It's what's permitted him to do everything from moving the military into cities to imposing tariffs. He is going to use it as a pretense to seize the voting powers from the states. Now, there is no evidence of widespread interference, and this would represent an unprecedented abuse of presidential power. Now, this is an executive order. It's a draft, 17 pages, authored by pro-Trump activists, and it was reviewed by and released in this form, that is to say, reporting on it by the Washington Post. The plan would be to blame China for Trump's 2020 presidential election loss. It would reportedly allow the president to ban mail-in ballots and voting machines, and both of those things Trump has falsely blamed for being vectors of fraudulent voting. Last month, a lawyer who represented Trump in his 2020 election denial lawsuits, he ordered a raid to collect the 2020 election ballots from Fulton County, Georgia. This is stuff that we talked about and reported on here. Trump has contested the results in Georgia, even though there have been multiple investigations. Twice there have been hand count votes and recounting by hand of those ballots, and there's been no fraud. Tulsi Gabbard, the National Intelligence Director, she was on hand for that raid, even though her role as DNA doesn't overlap with any in-person domestic criminal investigative work. This is a power play from those who are there to support whatever conspiracy theory Donald Trump wants to impose to remain in power. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche used to be Trump's personal attorney. He said in an interview with CNN that he didn't know why Gabbard was there. He literally said, quote, "I don't know why the director was there." This is a serious bit of reporting at the Washington Post, and this would, if he were to impose this emergency, this would empower him to do what is offered here, to ban mail-in ballots and voting machines, viewing them both as soft spots for foreign interference.
If he does this, if he co-opts voting in America, is this the line in the sand where Americans finally stand up and say, "Oh no, you're not taking our voice"? No.
Well,
or do we just lay down it like we have been the whole time and go, "Oh, well, he must have our best interest at heart"?
Well, no one's saying, to be fair to Americans, no one's laying down who's an American.
Half the country is laying down.
Well, that's, again, you can characterize it any way you want. I mean, I'd suggest a lot of what's happened, the country doesn't give an S about the open corruption, the ICE agents, the Venezuela flex. Now we'll see with Iran where we go. A lot of that doesn't really show up on the radar of the average American. I mean, I'm just trying to explain a situation. I'm not justifying it. I'm just trying to explain it a bit. And I think it's important that I think it have a context that's understandable, because I do think like, oh, are we just going to lie down and let this happen? I think you're right to ask the question, but you're really asking it of GOP legislators who have been MIA. I mean, I think the Democrats have, well, I'll give you an example. On the Iran thing, they want to have an actual vote. As you know, Democrats want to have a vote right now in Congress on whether or not the president can launch an attack and begin his military flex in Iran. They want everybody in Congress to vote on this. They want everybody on the record. And of course, the GOP is blocking that. Your question's a good one, which is, will they stand by and let him fake another national emergency to actually put off an election? Or to, what he's going to say is, there will be an election. It's just that these areas that have been exploited by foreign powers, we're not going to let it happen again. And you're going to have confidence because you'll be able to go to the polling place and you'll vote in person. Now, once again, that may not work out the way he wants, but as long as you're ready to seize ballots and seize voting machines, and I think, and this is what I've said from the very beginning, there'll be absolutely no end to what will happen to protect this administration. I mean, it's a power grab. So in that spirit, I don't know that you'll be able to prevail in this election. And the last thing I'll say, Kim, and this is more really in answering what you're asking about, if you were in power, the GOP is, if you were in power and you knew by allowing these elections to proceed that you were going to lose power, which, again, by all the metrics appears to be the scenario, would you be the one to stop the president from doing what he plans to do, which is stop the election that's going to vote you out? Or would you be like, well, I don't know, I think we have to, you do a MAGA Mike Johnson. I don't know, I think the president's within his right to look at things, and I think that's important to the American people to have fair elections. And if he's found evidence of Chinese interference, well, then I think we really have to. So I think the GOP is corrupt as a group. You can say all political parties in America are corrupt. I get it. But I'm talking about corrupt in the way that they would even stand aside and let Trump get away with this. And the reason for that is because they all want to retain power.
There's a 17-page draft executive order apparently just waiting to go out on this. But here's the question, and maybe this is a question for David Katz. If the Supreme Court just found that emergency powers are not a valid way to impose tariffs, then would emergency powers also not be a valid excuse to seize an election? Maybe are you overstepping with the emergency powers? And in the most recent ruling on tariffs, could that be applicable to this?
I think that's a question I will ask David Katz. And before I do ask David Katz, I'll just take this from Steve Puma. Thank you for the super chat, Steve. Big shout out to you.
Big shout out.
Mark, stop framing this as if it is something Trump could actually do. Executive orders are not law. This would not empower, in quotes, him to do those things. It's not that the executive, and again, I have a major legal analyst standing by in the wing, so I'll ask him. But what my point, the one I'm trying to make simply, Steve, is that I'm not saying it's legal. I'm saying he could declare a national emergency in the same illegal way that he's declared it elsewhere, and in the same way that he has been able to get away with bringing the military into Los Angeles. You end up with military and National Guards being nationalized, National Guards people specifically, in ways in which it is blatantly illegal. But again, in service of this national emergency, you have the national emergency allowed to proceed for months and months and months before the Supreme Court said that it was illegal. So all I'm trying to say is he can do a lot unless he's blocked by what? By a legal challenge? A legal challenge takes time. During that time, you're not having an election that involves mail-in ballots or machine voting. So what do you go to? You default to the in-person voting. You can see how it creates a chaos, and in that chaos, Trump wins. When I say Trump wins, I mean his GOP stays in power. And the more chaos around the election, the easier it is for the GOP to cling to power. I always give big credit to the GOP for their incredibly intensive creative strategizing, however dastardly and disgusting, not to mention illegal, says Hilo Karen. Yeah. All right, I'll get to David Katz in a second. I just want to...
The Mark Thompson Show.
A quick shout out to Sweet 106 Bakery. I'm in love. I'm in love with something I can order every day. Oh, my God. They are a wonderful story of a small business that has triumphed with a simple idea. They package, they bake to order. You order from them, and they bake in small bunches, and then they package and send it out. There it is, Christie's Southern Red Velvet. That is, I'm in love. And all of the other cupcake bundles and the variety baking mix bundle, if you want to try to be like Christie, do it. The Snickers, it's all there at sweet106bakery.com. Use our discount code MarkT. You'll get 15% off. Try this. We road tested them for a month. It was the best road test I've ever taken. And you will fall in love as we have.
Can we do that road test again?
Yeah, exactly. I sent stuff to Albert, to Kim, to Tony. The layered cakes are... it's a brilliant feat of engineering and baking. Double vanilla. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
The dulce de leche. Wow. I am excited.
Girl, you just woo.
Sweet106bakery.com. Use our discount code MarkT. You'll get 15% off. Sweet is S-U-I-T-E for those just listening. Sweet, like a suite of rooms. Sweet106bakery.com. Discount code is MarkT, 15% off at checkout. Sweet106bakery.com.
I've told you it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm excited about one of the great legal analysts in the English-speaking world. You've heard him on BBC and seen him on BBC television. You've seen him on Fox, on News Nation, across the various television networks. Seen him in New Zealand and Australia. I mean, I'm telling you, guy is in great demand. He is the brilliant former prosecutor, former federal prosecutor with a sense of what's happening at the Justice Department. Can't wait to talk to him. Now a defense attorney. He's David Katz, everyone.
Hi, great to be with you, Mark.
David, there's a lot going on, and I guess I'll just, having come off of this story that has just been released with the president and the president's people digesting a memo, a plan, a strategy that would include, this is a 17-page document, that would include a declaration by the President of the United States of a national emergency based on the fact that the Chinese, this is again the strategy articulated and reported by the Washington Post, the Chinese were involved in the 2020 election, essentially invalidating that, so it checks that box that Trump actually won the 2020 election. And to avoid foreign involvement in this election, he would bar mail-in voting and machine voting, and it would only be in-person balloting. That is a national emergency. I'm kind of doing a reducto on it, but I wonder if you could speak to what we've been talking about in the chat, which is, could he do that legally or just with that declaration? I'd suggest he's made some declarations, national emergency declarations, in the last year, and he's gotten away with it for a time before the courts step in.
Well, I think it's good that we have that 17-page blueprint because it can start to be challenged in the courts. I think the courts will invalidate it piece by piece. Number one, he has very little power without Congress. I know he thinks he has this massive dictatorial power under executive orders. You'll remember under President Biden how many of his executive orders got knocked down, and he wasn't nearly as whatever word, as outrageous, as brazen with his executive orders as Trump has been. So the fact that he issues one doesn't mean it's going to be upheld by the courts. This seems to be particularly impracticable, and it won't happen because the Constitution leaves the elections to the states. Even the elections for federal office, they leave to the states. So it's state rules and state procedures by which we elect the president, by which we elect federal senators and federal House members. And so I think the courts will pretty readily strike down any parts of that. Now you're talking about what could he do on a true emergency basis? Like a week before the election, he says no mail-in ballots or his postal service doesn't deliver the mail. And I think the Democrats have to, think outside the box, expect him to do every reprehensible criminal thing that comes into his mind to retain the House. In particular, that's what he's most interested in, although he's doing so poorly and alienating so many people, Trump is, that he's on the verge of losing the Senate too. But if it looks like that's really going to happen, everybody needs to have their car ready to go, gassed up, ready to drive voters to the polls, ones who somehow can't cast a mail-in ballot. Everybody be ready to take voters to the polls. I did that in Nevada. Plan on a swing state where it really matters. It doesn't matter much in a lot of places in LA, but the senatorial race really mattered in Nevada. So the presidential race, I went over there and drove people to the polls. It's amazing how much one person can do. It's not a matter of great legal acumen. I had a big car and I drove people all day long. And most of those people, in the inner city in Las Vegas, especially minorities, probably wouldn't have gone to the polls that day. And I myself probably took 20, 25 people to the polls just running the shuttle back and forth. So whatever it is, be ready for it. Be ready to figure out how you're going to counteract it. And there's going to be a lot of people, including, I think, a lot of federal judges who are going to make sure that Trump doesn't get away with it.
There was a notion posted here about the participation of Tulsi Gabbard. I think it's CC Ryder says, this is where I expect Tulsi to trot out a new conspiracy, and Tulsi Gabbard's big on conspiracy theories, about China and Georgia ballots from 2020 to somehow justify Trump's fake executive order. To what extent can a declaration by Tulsi Gabbard, or, the declaration that he wanted when he put in his temporary attorney general, who he said, I just want you to say that there was a question about the election. You don't need to actually do an investigation, or there doesn't need to be any irregularity in reality. To what extent can a declaration from Tulsi Gabbard or anyone else in an official way, or the Trump himself, affect, in essence, the tabling of the election, the delay of the election, the ways in which you might mess with the election?
Well, that was post hoc, all of those things that Trump tried to do after it was clear that he had lost in 2020. Now we're talking about before the election. And I think both are very, very difficult because there are all of these procedures in these states that are set out on such and such a day, the ballots go out. By such and such a date, they have to be returned. There's a procedure for this. There's voting rolls. You can't just go through there and say, oh, the Chinese are coming, and send federal marshals in there to go purge voting rolls. It doesn't work like that. I mean, a judge will stop that immediately. There's maybe two federal judges in America. There's Judge Cannon and there's that one in Amarillo. And except for them, I don't think there's a federal judge in America who would go along with something like that, with federal marshals going in and doing anything in state offices. I know it just happened down in Georgia. I know that, and so people are apprehensive. But I think we'll see how that one shakes out. I think that those searches may be suppressed. I know that one was scary down in Georgia, and you had that Tulsi Gabbard there.
No, that's
like
really
she looked like a spy herself, making phone calls from a corner or something like that. And that's just, Mark, that is so beyond the Paul, that whatever it is, it's so beyond that FBI agents in the middle of a search, they're always so secretive. They have to be kept under such lock and key, never revealed. And then all of a sudden, it seems like when the FBI wants, they're leaked to the press, or some camera person is there friendly to the FBI. But this one was a total outrage, where they got on the phone with the president. Like, did you find anything that really helped me? I mean, it's Trump talking to the FBI. This is why the FBI is having so much trouble recruiting, why so many FBI special agents are leaving. I've got a couple of cases with the FBI, and I hope that they don't leave because they're competent. They know what they're doing. And you just worry, some ding dong comes along. But I think some ding dongs are coming along. I think they're getting hired, and so many quality FBI special agents are leaving. So I know why you're worried about all this kind of stuff, Mark, but I think people have to be really vigilant. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits that have to be brought and funded. I said last week, people should give money to the ACLU and all these other groups. They're saving the nation along with the federal judges. Don't wait for the Congress to do it. Oh my God, the Republicans in the Congress and the Senate, they're so lost. History will record that they abdicated, that they're cowards. I don't know exactly what's going on with them. They don't even have respect, Mark, for their own institution. The framers didn't think that they would just say, oh, we're the third branch of government. In fact, we're Article 1. I don't think they ever thought that they would roll over like that. They thought
they're frightened. They're frightened for their political lives. They're frightened for their literal lives. There is a sense also that they will retain power because this guy will make sure that they retain power. That's what I was saying before. So when you wonder how come these guys don't intercede and prevent him from grabbing this kind of power, because he's grabbing this kind of power in the face of what will be strong political turnover. They will lose their jobs. And their view is, hey, if this is what it takes for us to retain power, I mean, again, they don't spell it out, but that's got to be one reason that they don't get it into his way.
Here's the funny thing. There's some of them who are retiring. There's 40 or 50 House members. I think there's 40 Republican House members who are retiring. So this idea that they're just trying to hang on to their jobs, there's 40 who are retiring, and most of them still won't break with this abdication of their role. On their way out the door, they want to do nothing. They don't want to. They're not going to be primary. They're not running again.
That's their protest, is that they're retiring. I'm serious. That's their protest. They want to go out. I don't want any trouble. I want to go to Palm Springs with my wife, buy a little place, and retire. I mean, I'm telling you, I think that's the view of these guys. I mean, they're scared. They're scared of the MAGA mob.
Mark, can I tell them something? Okay. You guys are crazy if you're scared of that. First of all, you have the best protection in the world, okay? This is not like Mexico or some third world country where they really do. Suddenly the mayor gives an anti-corruption speech, he's assassinated, and nothing happens. That has not, thank God, happened in America, and that is not a real threat to those retiring House members. And as to the thing about, oh, well, they can't retire in peace. Of course they can retire in peace. They're going to all be lobbyists, okay? And they might actually be better lobbyists the less they're tied to Trump. If you think there's not going to be a revision of history after Trump leaves, I wasn't there. I didn't vote for him. I don't know what was happening. They could cast a few votes to stand up for their congressional privileges and prerogatives right now and be remembered better in 4 years as lobbyists. I'm giving them some good career advice, how to be better lobbyists. Don't just be a rollover milquetoast.
Well, you mentioned the FBI. There was another purge at the FBI associated with the documents and the documents that were secreted at Mar-a-Lago. I'll remind everybody that those documents involved top secret and classified military secrets that were housed in bathrooms, and at least one bathroom, the ballroom, his bedroom, closet, an office, all unsecured. Okay, these were not areas that were under lock and key. And the case was dumped at the concierge judge's feet in Florida, and she's just made the case go away. But that's not the end of it. And that just happened this week. The end of it appears to involve the dismissal of 10 FBI agents who are involved in the Trump document case investigation. They were all fired. I wonder if you could speak to that.
Well, they're probably going to win their cases, in the...
You're saying they'll sue the government for wrongful termination.
In the board, they'll get their salary. They won't lose any money. The ones who are, they'll have some, obviously, a displacement in their life. Hopefully, they have some money in the bank. Some of them are near retirement. I think they'll personally be okay. It's the nation, of course. It's all of us who are suffering because they're going to intimidate other law enforcement, and anybody who would stand up and be decent got the message right here that decency will be punished, because those FBI agents didn't do anything wrong. The FBI used to say, big cases, big problems. And especially for the FBI agents, some people say the assistant U.S. attorneys want to have these huge cases because it makes their career. The FBI agents, much less so. I think the average FBI special agent thinks, wow, big case against the former president with all of his power and everything else, big potential problems for me. So I don't think they were all volunteering to work on Mar-a-Lago, Mark. I think that they were assigned to work on Mar-a-Lago.
That's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said. A lot of these cases, that is true also of the J6ers. Remember, they fired all those agents associated with J6 and people from the Justice Department. They're assigned those cases.
Right. And so you have that in the first place. But this is obviously totally wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. And Mar-a-Lago was always a righteous case. There was never any doubt about it, Mark. You've detailed it on your show. It was the easier case. History will record that the enormous error that the special prosecutor made, Jack Smith, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The huge mistake that he made was to bring that case down in Florida. He thought that case was so iron tight. And I think that he had this sense of, my case is so strong, any judge, any jury. And guess what? He could have gotten a conviction down there, any jury, even in Trump's middle district of Florida. But what he didn't count on as much as he should have was Cannon. He had 1 in 3 chances of getting Cannon. He got her, and Cannon absolutely torpedoed the case. She did everything that she could to help Trump and to hurt them. She didn't have a secure facility down there. She used the fact that there wasn't a secure facility down there to inject months and months of delay in the case. In the early part of the case, she was reversed twice by the very conservative circuit that's above her. And yet, as I say, they took that risk. If they'd have brought that case in Washington, D.C., they would have had a skiff. Any federal judge in D.C. wouldn't have delayed it that long. And Trump would have been convicted. Before the election, he would have been convicted. So that was the huge miscalculation. I think that Jack Smith thought, well, there were 2 other defendants that sort of, venue of them seemed more appropriate. To hell with the 2 defendants. Let Trump call those 2 other defendants as witnesses at trial and say, if it was all my fault, Trump didn't know anything. I went on a lark of my own and I stuck all that stuff in the bathroom in the ballroom. Because he's a totally get along kind of guy. This guy that we have to call Donald J. Trump and Mr. Trump, and we have to genuflect to and do everything he says. Well, no, but in this instance, regarding all those records, I went along and did this frolic on my own. Let Trump put on that defense in Washington, D.C. There was perfect venue in Washington, D.C., and I don't believe any judge in Washington, D.C. would have sent the case down there. But now we have loose cannon. And loose cannon, her view of the law is that as soon as she decides, and she's the only federal judge who ever decided, Mark, we've had all of these cases, okay, where we've had special prosecutors appointed. She's the only, and everyone makes the same defense. My special prosecutor was wrongly appointed. It's executive power. It's only the Department of Justice. Who's this guy? He's not the attorney general. Everyone has argued that. Every judge in America has said that the special prosecutor was properly appointed, except her. But the minute that she says that without any appellate review, then Jack Smith is supposed to stop, dead in his tracks, not write a report, not do anything. He showed brazen arrogance to go ahead and do his job after she had ruled that he should stop. And on that basis, she's actually suppressed that report. And now it's going to be a matter of how fast the Court of Appeals will overturn her. The Court of Appeals will overturn her. And the action is going to be whether they say that they're going to send it to a different judge in her district, or as is normal, send it back to the same judge on the theory that judges are so objective, they're so wonderful, they've been confirmed by the Senate, they're people of such unusual impartiality that they will be able, even after being reversed, to strictly carry out the orders of the appellate court and not what they wanted to do in the first place. And if they indulge that fiction with her, and it is a legal fiction, which often is true because of the particular judge, and it's often not true with a particular judge. And she seems to be marked like a judge who does not plan to do what the circuit tells her to do. They should send it to a different judge. And then finally, we'll have that report released. Before the election that's coming up? No, we probably will not have that report released anytime before the election that's coming up in November.
But to be clear, through all of that, we're talking about the report that Jack Smith did. We're not talking about the case. The case has been extinguished. Is that right?
The case has been extinguished, I think, as a practical matter. A Democrat could win and bring that case. It's close. I don't know if it's within 5 years anymore from the time that Trump
right.
would leave.
You'd have a statute of limitations
You'd
problem.
have a statute of limitations problem. But the report is very important that it come out. There will be things in that report, Mark, that would be incredibly damaging to Trump that will not come out otherwise. A lot of the documents themselves are under seal. She's sealed a lot more than I think a normal judge would have. Trump has wanted to file everything under seal. And so that report publicly disclosed would be a revelation to the nation and not one that would help Trump.
There were those who were around the FBI raid who said, had that been anyone else, they would have been immediately imprisoned for the kinds of secrets and sensitive materials that were contained there at Mar-a-Lago. That was the degree with which everyone was shocked about what was actually there. So I think you're right.
Have the photo? Does your producer have the famous Exhibit A, which shows the national security gold and red seals and the emblem top secret all over those boxes and all over those documents?
We've been showing a bunch of different pictures. I don't know if he's put that particular one up or not, but
it was a crime. Like when you go to the site, okay, and there's the heroin, there's the hypodermic needles, there's the scale that counts the cash money. It was more incriminating than that. There they are.
There it is, yeah. It's so easy to understand. That's the reason I liked it. It was so egregious. It was so simple. As you say, the evidence was right there. You didn't need some sophisticated understanding of accounting, and this guy paid for this, and it was a business expense, and I don't know. This was straight up. And I just felt what an abomination that it never came to term. I need to move on to the next story, which last
thing, Mark. Remember, he said that they were not there. The court found that his attorney had to testify because his attorney had been used as part of a crime fraud by Trump. And then when they actually, after all that played out, all these declarations and statements that the documents weren't there, then the FBI showed up, and guess what? The documents were all there. It was a classic obstruction of justice, and it had venue in Washington, D.C., because the documents had been taken from, and the beautiful thing that it's too bad Jack Smith didn't hit, he could have started this prosecution the day after he was president. They were still being moved out of Washington. He could have started the day after he was president, and so even that monstrous presidential immunity wouldn't have applied because it was stuff that happened the day after he was president till another period of time when he also was not president.
Merrick Garland slow walking everything. It's despicable. But here's an interesting question. I guess we're never going to get to all the rest of this stuff.
I'm sorry, Mark.
No, it's not your fault. People are interested in this. David, this is from CC Ryder. I don't know how to get the question up on screen. Here it is. David, can a Democratic Congress pass a law extending the statute of limitations in cases involving national security and executive branch?
What a great question.
It's a really great question, CC Ryder. Thank you.
He should be in law school. No, you cannot extend a statute of limitations after the event's already happened. So if you do something under a 5-year statute of limitations, year 6, that would be retroactive punishment. So that they cannot.
No. But during the period where you know that the clock is going to expire, could you then extend it?
Yes, you could extend, but it would have to be during the time. Let's just be clear. So
you'd have to initiate the case already, is the point.
6 years ago. Trump right now has done something 6 years ago. You can't say, no, it's not a 5-year statute of limitation. It's 10.
Let me just put the finest point on it. If you initiate a case within the period of statute of limitations, you can extend the statute of limitations to allow the case to proceed. That is to say, it's not like a shot clock that's going to go up. Sorry, we started it, but it ran out. But if you have run out of time on the statute of limitations, there's no way to go back and extend it to allow for the prosecution of a case.
A statute of limitations is usually for an indictment. So if the indictment is brought within 5 years, if a mere complaint is brought, that complaint probably wouldn't stop the statute of limitations. So when I was an assistant U.S. attorney, I had cases that because the investigation had taken so long, maybe I took them over from another attorney, and they were already old, and the boss gave them to me and said, "Hey, Katz, you're run with this one. You've got 2 months," and I would run with it. But there were some times that it was 4 years, 11 months, and a couple of weeks. And if you didn't get into the grand jury then, if there was a SIG alert and the grand jurors didn't make it in there, and then the next week it was a rainstorm, that was it. 5 years, you were out of time. There are other statutes that have a 10-year statute of limitations, Mark, especially a lot of financial crimes and crimes with banks. So there might be some way to extend it. But this one seems like it's pretty much 5 years. This one seems like it's an obstruction of justice. It begins and ends.
A new lawsuit is alleging that the Department of Homeland Security illegally tracked and intimidated observers. This is a big case. We've heard a lot about it. Precisely the way in which on camera, DHS agents in the form of ICE or Customs and Border have said, yeah, you understand I'm putting your face in a database. We'll be following you. Okay, this is, again, you're in a domestic terrorist database, said one of these people who's part of this class action. These are just observers of many of the things going on with these ICE maneuvers. So the suit was filed by the legal nonprofit Protect Democracy and the law firms Dunn, Isaacson, Ree, and Drummond Woodsum. And they are saying in this allegation that federal agents are unconstitutionally retaliating against people who are lawfully observing and recording federal immigration enforcement operations by gathering their personal information and labeling them domestic terrorists. Can you speak to this lawsuit, which is underway?
Well, one of their best pieces of evidence, Mark, is apparently there's somebody who's videotaping these ICE agents. And the ICE agent kind of goes by the person who's videotaping and like, what are you doing here? And she says, she says, I have a right to videotape. And the ICE agent says, yes, I have a right to videotape too, except I'm putting you on a list. And that is now recorded on video that the ICE agent says, I'm putting you on a list. Now, that doesn't mean that it's absolutely true, but it's certainly a lead that's important. Somebody's saying in an official position, I'm putting you on a list. And then there's this fellow who's the new head, I guess he's the current head of ICE, the one who came in to, you know his name, Mark, the one who took the 50,000 bag.
Yeah, you're talking about Homan, Tom Homan.
Homan. So Homan has also said that there's going to be a list. I'm going to make you famous, he said. Your employer will know about what you're doing. Your community will know about what you're doing. I'm going to make you famous, he said threateningly, meaning, again, that you're going to be on a list. So you got an ICE agent who's bragging that there's going to be a list. You have Homan, the head of ICE, saying there's going to be a list. I guess the question is, if you're really a terrorist, sure, but to be put on a list when you're not a terrorist, and these people are just observers exercising their constitutional rights, is that going to affect your ability to fly? Is this going to affect you getting a job? And unfortunately, the Democrats don't have control of either house of Congress. If they did, they would subpoena the records, right, from DHS and see if there is such a list. They would take 10 of these plaintiffs and they would ask for their flight records to make sure did Customs or the DHS have them on some, check before they fly list. Like, there's this one person that the DHS lawyer is after, and all of a sudden his bag gets stopped and his bag gets searched and his trip gets delayed. What is in those computers? Is there really such a list? My guess, seeing how unethical and unscrupulous I think a lot of these DHS folks are that are currently in charge, I think, of course, they have a list. And I think they're going to try to make life difficult. And I think that if they get proper discovery, I think the plaintiffs will win this lawsuit. And these lists will have to be expunged, which is a hard thing. You don't want to see in the computer, if the customs agent sees this person was in the list and now they're expunged, they're going to stop the person and make them go through secondary anyway. They're going to hassle them. How do you really expunge it and make any trace of it disappear? But that's what the court order ought to be, because that's an outrage that for exercising your constitutional right and videotaping those guys, you're in a public place, you have every right to videotape. They put you on a list and make it look like you're a quasi-terrorist.
Federal agents have access to facial recognition tools that can be used to identify people in the field, and the lawsuit also mentions the mobile app Mobile Companion. It allows agents to use a smartphone to scan license plates. These kinds of surveillance tools allow federal agents to intimidate observers and protesters by revealing that they know their names and addresses, according to the lawsuit. Several Minnesota observers who followed federal agents in their cars have described the experience of agents leading them to their own homes to show that they know where they live. The lawsuit names other Maine observers who have had the same experience, the state of Maine, who've had the same experience. And just to your point, I was at a dinner about a week ago, and this lady was telling me she's the she and her husband were coming back from Mexico. She's the kind of person who posts on Facebook and posts elsewhere a lot of anti-Trump stuff and, outrage. She's coming back from Mexico, and they tell her her passport has been stolen. They don't recognize the passport that she has as valid any longer. And she says, what are you talking about? This is the passport. What do you mean it's been stolen? I've got it right here in front of you. It's not stolen. It's in my hands. They said, well, go back, and they send her to a room there off on the side where she was for about 45 minutes. And there was a reapplication process that she had to begin. And this is what you're talking about. Right? They allowed her into the U.S. She's a U.S. citizen. But the point is, they made life scary and they made life difficult. And that's what they can do by putting you on a list of any kind. So.
But, people, be strong. Don't be intimidated. If everything she says is true, it was 45 minutes. And in exchange for that, she got to exercise her First Amendment rights apparently every day to express her opinion of what she thinks about this regime and some of its henchmen and henchwomen. And so it's 45 minutes out of her life. So you know what I mean? That's not right. It's not right. But, this is how you have to push back these authoritarian governments. Well, what they really needed, besides a strong press and hopefully strong courts, was people who were willing to push back.
The Trump administration got a setback in a courtroom. I wanted to get your opinion, counselor. A federal judge in Massachusetts ruling just yesterday that the Trump administration's policy to quickly remove people to third countries to which they have no previous connection is illegal. And people have to get meaningful notice and the chance to challenge their deportations. The case originated after 8 migrants were removed from the U.S. with intended destinations of South Sudan. They were then rerouted to Djibouti. 8 migrants did not have South Sudan or Djibouti on the listed country in their final orders of removal paperwork, and the immigration advocates filed a lawsuit in an attempt to get them back to the U.S. for due process. Speak to this, I think, major court ruling, right?
Well, when Kristi Noem and this Homan are really on their game, they not only don't send you to your country of origin, they don't send you to your continent of origin. So yes, this ruling was extremely important. You might wonder why we haven't had such a ruling as this. People will look back. They're already looking, a lot of your viewers are in Europe, and especially the comments from the European voters. They just can't believe this is happening the way we couldn't believe this was happening if we read this about some other country. Here are people who are, let's say, from Colombia, or they're from Mexico. They're put on a plane to go to the middle of Africa. They don't know anybody there. They don't have any idea what's going on there. Now, a little inside baseball, what the administration has argued was, as long as they have a good feel from diplomats in that country, that they're not going to mow the person down the minute they get off the plane. Notice, they will not be shot upon arrival. And as long as the Secretary of State or somebody feels that they won't be shot upon arrival in Djibouti or South Sudan, which, by the way, some of them may be shot or tortured. But if they're not going to be shot upon arrival, then they feel they have a right to send the deportee anywhere that they want to without having to ask a judge, without having to comply with any further niceties of due process. And the judge said, no, that's not right. You have to give them timely notice. And this judge is one of those who's watched them abuse his orders, defy his orders, and he's finally had it. The way he's seen them defy his orders is when he said you have to give them proper notice so they can come to court. They gave notice of less than 24 hours. How could a person hire a lawyer and come to court? So they mocked and lampooned his orders over and over again, as the Trump administrations want to do with orders that they don't like. And he said, no, that's it. I've had it. Due process requires that you give them timely notice, really timely notice, so that they have a chance to go to court if you're going to send them to some country other than their country of origin. I think the one wrinkle is that it applies to people who've been here more than 2 years. If it's what they call an expedited removal, it may not apply to expedited removal. But if anybody's going to get their legal advice about immigration from our show, they really should go to an immigration lawyer, not take it from us.
The judge in the case involving the Washington Post reporters' seized devices has also handed the government a setback. The court saying that you can't seize and search a Washington Post reporter's stuff because of a national security investigation that you've declared. Again, this is a magistrate judge, William Porter, critical of Donald Trump for omitting this case law in application for a search warrant to seize the devices in the first place, but acknowledging, quote, the possibility that classified national security information may be among the seized material, but saying that this wasn't a legal seizure from the standpoint of being able to review what's on these hard drives in the Washington Post reporter's home. Can you speak to this?
Mark, have you thought about the fact that the last 7, 8, 10 cases we've talked about have all been losses for the Trump administration, all by judges who've gotten the word that this is just, or who understand from the Constitution, from the statutes, that this is not proper. So what happened here, and I know you're in a hurry, I'll try to do this really quick, but there was a law that was passed in about 1980 or so, I think Carter administration, which gave particular rights to journalists to not be searched. This is a law that's in force. The assistant U.S. attorney did not bring that law in force, the law that controlled this case, to the magistrate judge to say, hey, you should be really cautious in approving this search because there is law that says that these kind of searches are discouraged. The assistant U.S. attorney did not bring that to the judge's attention. That would normally be grounds for firing, bar action, things like that. His defense, her defense, is that his supervisors, her supervisors at DOJ said, don't mention that law. The superiors at DOJ said, do not mention that law. And that is the record before this judge. The judge said, this is awful. Now, you can say, well, maybe the magistrate judge should have found that law, but, not everyone's encyclopedic. And it's the role of attorneys to bring it to the judge's attention, which these federal prosecutors failed to do. The remedy is now that the judge will not allow DOJ, the FBI, Kash Patel, to salivate and go through those documents and try to figure out who this reporter's sources were. She's considered the the government whisperer, that all these government whistleblowers go to her at the Washington Post. And so potentially there are dozens, hundreds of whistleblowers. Ooh, wouldn't Kash Patel love to get his hands on something like that? The judge said, no, you can't. I'm going to look through all of this stuff, because if there really is national security stuff in there, right, he can't give it back to the reporter. So apparently the remedy is going to be, unless it's true national security stuff, he's going to give it back to the reporter. He's going to give all the devices back to the reporter, and it will remain unseen by the FBI, by Kash Patel, by DHS, all the people who would love to salivate over it and try to take revenge against government whistleblowers. By the way, the huge whistleblower champion in the Senate, that old guy, that 90-year-old Republican who claims to love whistleblowers, where is he? Where is he now that the whistleblowers are against the Republican administration? Where is that Republican senior senator?
Yeah, where a lot of Republican senior citizens are, at the Republican senior senators MIA meeting. I do want to just put a fine point on this because it gets to a question. FBI agents did seize 2 laptops, a recorder, a portable hard drive, and a Garmin watch. Okay. Now, as you say, the court has ordered the devices returned, and there again is this ruling that, you can't search the devices. My question, during the time that they had grabbed all of this stuff and brought the stuff to the FBI, isn't it likely that they looked, this is a pretty lawless crew. Don't you think that they have some sense of what's inside all of those devices?
Well, he issued an order, the judge there did, in about a day or two,
Right.
And so it's true they might have jumped on it right away, but they might not have anticipated that order. They would have only had a day or two. Part of his order would have been to not disseminate it in any way. You know, Mark, there's lots of ways to get caught. You know, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I see people that think that they're very, very clever, and they get caught. They think they've deleted something, and all they've done is push the delete button. So you can not only see what it is the person thought was deleted, but you also have the guilty intent, the guilty knowledge that they knew it was bad for them, so they tried to delete it. There are many similar ways to catch the cops, like there are the cops use to catch the crooks. So if you're the FBI, if you're Kash Patel, and you do review them or you use them despite the judge's order, you're very likely to get caught. You know, these guys won't be in power forever. There will be a day of accounting. There will be somebody looking through what keystroke they hit, what everything they did, and if they defied the judge's order, that's contempt.
I am running out of time, and I just want to note that Jeanine Pirro has gotten rid of the case that she was pursuing against those Democrats who were on that video saying to military officers, don't obey any unlawful order. But the Pentagon is appealing the order. You know, Pete Hegseth is now involved in a few threats. I mean, he's involved in an AI threat and really threatening an AI company with you'll play by Pentagon rules and you'll change your rules of security, or I will go after you with all kinds of different levers of government that are available to me. And similarly with Senator Mark Kelly, it looked as though this case was over, but now Pete Hegseth is appealing the order, punishing Mark Kelly for the video that he and other Democrats put together, pushing for service members to reject unlawful orders. This feels like it's a case that's not going to go anywhere, but it doesn't seem as though the Pentagon is going to let it go.
Trump and Hegseth are so ham-handed and so stupid. The only question is, are they going to make Senator Kelly the president or merely the vice president in 2028? They have so enhanced the reputation and prominence of Senator Kelly, and you can see that he and the others have done absolutely nothing wrong. But on the legal issue, there's two things. They're kind of confusing. That Judge Leon that I was mentioning, he's the one who said that retired military officers have the same First Amendment rights as anyone else. Active duty military officers may have slightly circumscribed First Amendment rights, but not retired ones. And Hegseth's theory is that as a retired officer, and even though he's a senator, and even though he has the debate and speech clause to protect him, that he has less rights, Mark, than you and me or anyone walking down the street right now. That is absurd. They're going to lose that. They're going to get slapped down. And that's what they're appealing right now. They're appealing Judge Leon's ruling that there's no there in trying to demote or punish administratively or by cutting his pension, Senator Kelly. The other thing that Pirro has said is that she will not prosecute the six of them. That's not a matter of military rank or pension or something. That would be United States versus criminal case against Mark Kelly, Senator Slotnick, and the representatives. She has said, as the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., she's declining that case and that she does not view there as being any criminal case, and she's not going to proceed criminally or investigate criminally any of those six members of Congress.
But let me just mention, David, I'm sorry, but with respect, this is important. Originally, she had asked a grand jury to indict them, remember? But the grand jury just didn't. They just wouldn't. So you ended up, I believe that, now she says, we're not going to pursue this. But initially, she was all on board, wasn't she?
No, she was all awful, all lawless. But, what do they say? Insight that comes very late is still better than insight that doesn't come at all. And up until then, she had insight that was not coming at all. And at least she's been smart enough to realize she's gotten as smart as the people on the grand jury. She's gotten as smart about law.
Yeah, the grand jury would not indict, and now she's saying we have no intention of pursuing it. Right. But Pete Hegseth is trying to mess with it in other ways, and as David has said, going after a pension, and it's truly despicable from a pretty boy who has no place at the Pentagon, but is having way too much fun playing with the levers of power. I want to leave you with a truly wild one. A Supreme Court litigator convicted of tax evasion over income from a high-stakes poker. This is a guy who was seen on television. He's been an analyst. He is a guy named Thomas Goldstein. He founded a blog called the SCOTUS blog, and he was found guilty of tax evasion and related charges stemming from apparently a secret lifestyle as an ultra high-stakes poker player.
What?
12 of 16 counts after a 6-week trial in Greenbelt, Maryland. Jurors deliberating for approximately 2 days. They then convict Goldstein of 1 count of tax evasion, 4 of 8 counts of aiding and assisting in the preparation of false tax returns, 4 counts of willful failure to timely pay taxes, and 3 counts of false statements on loan applications. I mean, I guess this guy made a lot of money with high-stakes poker. They say he failed to pay taxes on millions of dollars in gambling income. He was a winner. The Justice Department prosecutors also accused him of diverting money from his law firm to pay gambling debts. So I guess he wasn't always a winner. Also, falsely deducting gambling debts as business expenses. I have to ask you about this high-stakes, they say ultra high-stakes poker player who is now convicted, Thomas Goldstein, of tax evasion.
For a great gambler, he didn't gamble very well against the IRS collection of taxes. The other thing that I would say for 2 things I'd say for Mr. Goldstein. Number one, you should always get your U.S. Supreme Court news, Mark, from our conversations and not from some other blog. It might be run by a guy who's not only convicted by the jury. One thing that will be interesting, I think he'll probably get bail pending appeal. So he could argue his own appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court if the case gets there. That would be memorable. But it seems like that he's dead to rights. You know, I actually represented a lawyer who was acquitted, but he had much more of a defense than this fellow looks like he had. Just from the face of it, he blamed everything on his law firm. But when it's a matter of, you know, my guy was like $100,000. There were some explanations why there was reasonable doubt as to $100,000 with my client who was acquitted. But this was a lawyer who apparently made millions of dollars, including in these Asian poker games. And one of the guys who didn't like losing ratted him out to the IRS. Quite predictable. If you're gambling on the odds of things happening, Mark, that's a pretty good gamble that someone will rat you out, and someone ratted him out to the IRS. He had a jury trial that lasted 6 or 7 weeks. It wasn't in Washington, D.C. It was in a place called Greenbelt.
Yeah, like a
Maryland.
suburb of
which
DC.
has a federal courthouse there. And he's facing years in prison because it's a lot of money that's not reported and not paid. So
it's interesting to me, just as an aside, I always see when these people evade taxes and it's millions of dollars, I always feel like the government will get its money. But I'm surprised, what's the threshold at which they then put you in prison for it? I always feel like if you write them a big enough check, don't they just let you skate?
Not really, at some point, but it's for deterrence. And the idea is that a lot of people would not pay their taxes if they knew that the only penalty was that if they catch you, you pay the taxes or you pay double taxes. The idea of deterrence is that there have to be some criminal cases, or a lot of people would take their risk. They'd say, I'll get lost in the shuffle. I won't pay tax on $3 million. And if they catch me, I have to pay double tax. So that's the idea of deterrence. One of the reasons that's wrong with deterrence is that a lot of these huge tax cheats have been pardoned by Trump. So talk about this idea that, well, I won't take the risk because I will end up in jail. Well, if you're a friend of Trump, you take the risk and you don't end up in jail. That's
you might even be able to buy your way out of it, instead of paying the fine. You just
the lack of deterrence there. But there are federal sentencing guidelines, and as the amount of money that you get convicted for, this is supposed to be millions of dollars. He'll have a sentence in the 5 to 7 year range, and then you get points off for accepting responsibility and pleading guilty, which he did not do. So he could be, up somewhere between the 5 and 10 year range. People do get long sentences for large amounts.
This is unbelievable. This is a prominent Supreme Court litigator, everybody. That's why I bring this up. It's not, convicted and losing in court. Now, the good news for him, if he's going to be doing 5 to 10 years, is there are some great poker games in prison. And I want to, yeah, I mean, if you want, there's some high-level poker being played there. So you can maybe win some pots.
You can win commissary privileges and that sort of thing. This is just exactly my kind of client. And, all the years that I've been doing this as a federal criminal defense attorney, I do sometimes shake my head, especially in cases like this, and think, why take the risk? Why take the risk? But then there are people in this situation who are not guilty, like my lawyer client. I've had 3 lawyer clients who didn't do it. I had the one who was acquitted, and 2, I got the charges dismissed. I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room in a lot of criminal tax cases, but I don't think this guy left himself much room to wiggle. I think
but he can try the buyout. The Trump buyout is always out there.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
David,
if he saved some of the money. He saved some of the money.
Exactly.
This is so ridiculous.
Trump doesn't take checks. He doesn't take IOUs.
David, love our time together. We'll look forward to next week. Watch for David across the universe of political and legal analysis.
Do not turn Mark off until Mark's show is over. But if you run to News Nation in 10 minutes, I'm on talking about Hillary Clinton's deposition today.
Yeah. All right. I'll look forward to that. All right. David Katz.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. There you go. Bye-bye, David.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, we covered a bit of Hillary Clinton at the beginning of this show. I mean, what's going to come out of that will be, I think, it's a closed door testimony. So you'll get on some level, a manicured kind of curated version of what's happening, and you'll get it from those who are present at the meeting. But nonetheless, I think it will be interesting, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow. I worked with an outfit bookie in Cicero, Illinois, says Hannah Pumpkins. One day I bet $5 and won. And he was like, well, you just made bank with a massive $6.50 winnings. My biggest spender. We laughed, and he bought me lunch.
That's a nice bookie.
Yeah. Outfit bookie, is that what it was?
Yeah, it's a nice bookie that buys you lunch, right?
Bookies are always friendly when you're going to pay them. When they're really, really anxious to see you, you must be a loser. But now the whole gambling world is full of online gambling and legalized gambling. It's all different. Back in the old days, you had to meet somebody in an alley. And I've told that story, and I'm not going to tell it now, but if you want it, drop me an email or something, and if I get enough emails, I'll tell the story about having to pay the bookie at the Chevron station every night from across from the television station. It was,
This is so ridiculous.
It had a pretty wild or odd ending, I'll say that.
The seedy life of Mark Thompson.
That's right. Remarkable's new guys are effing funny as hell, says Richard Delamater. I don't know what that refers to.
Must be some new guys in the chat.
I love all new guys.
Big shout out.
And new people. Art is fine with a €20 super chat.
Big shout
what up,
out.
Art? You have no other chance. You must vote for the Democrats and their leadership if you have the opportunity to vote properly. Yeah, I mean, that's the way Europe is thinking, and I think many Americans are thinking that way. We have a troubled country, to be honest, Art. I think there are other countries in the world that are also troubled. I don't mean to suggest that we're sort of the most diseased nation on earth by any means. But I do think that there is a sad illness that has afflicted America. And I don't know if we'll lose the patient or if we'll keep the patient stable and try to recuperate in the years that follow. But it's a scary time for certain. And a lot of the things that we've cherished as freedoms here are things that perhaps we didn't cherish enough or protect enough. So I share your sentiments, I guess is what I'm seeing. Chaplain Fred,
big shout
out. Sorry, Richard and everyone, but I do not do social media, especially Facebook. Wow. I mean,
good day, sir.
But it is a wild idea that just might work. Well, we do have...
it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
The new Facebook page that we have, the Mark Thompson Show Facebook page, is available to all of you. And it's a huge hit. I haven't been there yet, but we are going to start doing things there.
You haven't been there?
Thompson, party of 4.
They just called my table, so now
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
You're right. I am going to be all over it now. I will be on that world. Give us reviews, do that stuff. It's not yet reaching we are the very last show on Facebook. And I wanted to wait. Make sure that Facebook was really a thing. I saw what happened with Friendster and MySpace. I insisted on waiting. Year after year, they said, you've got to have a Facebook presence. You have to. Albert coming to me. Sometimes he'd call me in the middle of the night going, hey, this thing with Facebook is really bothering me.
Albert, thank you.
Why don't you have a Facebook page? I said, Albert, I want to wait. I don't want to jump in too soon. And so now, as Facebook is almost done, we are there. Yeah. So everybody can be part of Facebook. Here is a key component of what will be on Facebook this year. Some of the hot picks for Mark's Madness.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. We could just host Mark's Madness exclusively on our Facebook page.
We may do that. Now, there's some people who don't want to be on Facebook or whatever. I get it. But we do need a host platform. So will there be Mark's Madness this year? The answer, Albert, is the commissioner of Mark's Madness, and he is additionally compensated for his role in that way. So I'd say
yes. I'd like to keep. I think we have a lot of momentum going on with the show. I don't want to interrupt it with Mark's Madness. I do know there's a cult following with Mark's Madness, but I think we will have some capacity of Mark's Madness this year.
Yeah, so we'll do it in one form or another, kind of is what Albert is saying, and it's really true. You know, the show evolves and it grows, and a lot of the things that we came from, we want to keep going. And a lot of things we want to keep going, we have to figure out ways to keep them going while also honoring the way the show's evolved, if you get all that. So anyway, thank you, Debbie, for the question and for the point. Artist Fine says the issue is one of the Democratic leaders took money from Palantir. This blood money cannot be laundered. Well, Palantir is Peter Thiel, of course, in underwriting a lot in the way of politics. Now, it's primarily underwriting the party in power, but the problem with American politics, just, in 30 seconds or less, is that it's awash in money. The legalized bribery that is American politics has already corrupted the system. So when you say that a Democratic politician took money from Palantir, and Palantir is magnifying the political scene in ways that allow them to essentially spread money everywhere. So you can almost, there is blood on all hands. But what about the tan suit? Sarcasm, says Tom Graves. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, those were the good old days, right? You should ask Pam Bondi many times the name Harry Potter appears in Lord of the Rings. It would confuse her so much that she would quit.
If it were only that easy.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy.
Luis says Trash Patel's stink is from the beer he was chugging with Team USA. And what happens when you chug too much beer? Okay. All right, Luis.
Big shout out.
Yeah, there you go. Super sticker from Vivian Alshawa. She is an OG of the show. Thank you for
Big
a $10 super sticker. And Eugenio de Arnal with a $5
Big
super
shout
sticker.
out.
Thank you there as well. Hey, I wanted to mention one of our wonderful new partners, and they are the people
Thompson Show
at Zellman's. Zellman's, I have it with me all the time. I've got it right here.
I have mine here
Zellman's.
too.
I love my Zellman's. I always have it.
Start talking about Zellman's, I like to pop one in.
Zellman's Minty Mouth. How come there isn't a jingle, Albert? Do you have any kind of Kim's got kids who can write stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I think Zellman's needs a jingle.
Should I have Jacob write it up?
Yeah, have him give him a try. Zellman's, Zelmins, is an amazing thing. It's a tiny capsule. On the outside is this powerful mint, and it kind of gives you that fresh taste. But on the inside is the real action, these small capsules. And again, they're all natural, no xylitol, no artificial sweeteners, no preservatives. This is a parsley seed oil, essentially, that is designed to help fight odors that can cause bad breath from that stuff that's in your stomach. So the interaction in your gut is really the key. It's parsley seed oil And it's a special blend and alcohol-free, keto-friendly, gluten-free. Again, in your mouth, you get the refreshment. In your gut, that's where the real action is. There was a true scientific study they did on this. They spent $200,000 on this study. It's crazy. So I want you to know we road tested it. It works. You should try it. Zellmans.com, Zelmins, Zellmans.com. Use the code MARKT at checkout for 15% off. Zellmans.com.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We're wrapping up around here.
Now my guts are fresh and my mouth is fresh.
Remarkable.
Sweet.
Richard Delamater says Remarkable should post a picture of themselves on the Mark Thompson Show Facebook page so we can see what each other looks like. I went first. Richard, big shout out. That's a great idea. Richard Delamater serving up some good ideas these days. Yeah, get on the Facebook page and knock around on there, you know. I think some of these questions were answered in the show. I checked out Coachella Valley Coffee online, says Miss Kitty, and there's a picture of someone who looks like Mark. Really? Is that him?
What?
No.
Yes, it is him. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I haven't seen it. I will look at it myself.
You are featured on the CoachellaValleyCoffee.com page.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I saw this and I couldn't wait to get to it. I wish I'd had time during the show. During the conversation because I couldn't figure out what this was in relation to. I think I know, though. Latasha Jackson says, Mark is sounding crazy at this point.
What? I saw a couple of comments she made that said that you were defending Trump, and she did not like that, I think.
I don't know when I was doing that. I mean, I
don't know either.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not your normal MO.
You're looking at an alternate feed of, I didn't. And somebody said, Latasha, you're way off. Thank you for someone defending me, Yvonne Beach Bonnie. Trump is announcing months before the midterm elections that he's going to do whatever it takes to stop the Republicans from losing. Exactly. That's kind of what I've said. Thank you, Aurelian. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Aurelian.
We sort of have the playbook now, you know. And this is true. Hannah Pumpkins pointing out something that I pointed out as well. Once they officially put the label on you as a domestic terrorist, your life is basically ruined. You can't get credit. You can't open a bank account. You can't fly. You can't take an Amtrak, etc. This is what I was telling you along the way when this first was starting, that when they call somebody a domestic terrorist or a terrorist at all, and you know, this sort of rhetorical recklessness, I'll say, that is very much a part of the discourse now. This person's a terrorist, that's terrorist, this is a terrorist act, etc. It's a legally damaging term. It can be devastating. And so when they say terrorist, it matters. And so it's something that should very much be taken seriously. And I think it's something that we have to get a hold of, you know.
That story you told about the lady who they said her passport had been stolen, yet it was in her hand. That's scary.
Thank you. And and she's one of those people who puts on Facebook all this stuff that's anti-regime, you know. Tomorrow we'll follow up on of course, the Clinton stuff. You know, it's all for show. That they call the Clintons in is crazy, I think. I mean, I'm not saying it's crazy in and of itself. I'm saying it's crazy that of all of those mentioned, the Clintons get called in. Really? I mean, the president is all over the Epstein files like a bad smell, but we don't mention that. Tomorrow, we have the brilliant Mo Kelly, the brilliant Michael Schor. I've got an interview with Chris Armitage he is truly amazing with a how-to on everything from health legislation to actually preventing and beating back tyranny. All of that tomorrow.
We'll have Dr. Andrew Fracknoy, Dr. Heather Ann Thompson.
For the Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, that's right. Fracknoy's tomorrow, and who?
Dr. Heather Ann Thompson. Is that a relative?
Oh, my God. We've got... I don't know how we're going to get it in. Come to our 4-hour show tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.